Splice masters, also known as geneticists, had to experiment on a hybrid species in secret because their employer rejected their proposal for even suggesting using human DNA. Their hard work pays off when they successfully create a creature with superhuman intelligence and strength. But what happens if their experimented creature becomes dangerous as a result of her rapid growth? Let's find the answer in the movie. Inside the laboratory, the genetic engineering couple Clive Nicoli and Elsa Cast successfully achieve creating the second hybrid species, the vermiform creature. When they see that its vitals are stable, Clive requests scissors to cut the umbilical cord. But Elsa suddenly panics as she notices from the EKG that the vermiform creature's blood pressure is dropping fast. Besides, its respirations are slow, shallow, and irregular. Clive's brother, Gavin Nicoli, intervenes to check on the vermiform only to discover that it is in VTAC. So Elsa asks to have some dopamine injected into the creature, and then she lets Clive use the paddle to bring it back to life. Thankfully, the vermiform's heart rate stabilizes and no physical anomalies are discovered, giving the couple the joy of having created another beautiful vermiform offspring. The vermiform is then moved to a different area of the laboratory, where the first specimen is still resting. Apparently, the genetic engineering couple is doing this experiment to get recognition and help nuclear exchange research and development, also known as the NER, to make progress in medical research. They plan to exploit animal DNA splicing to produce vermiform creatures, wanting to get their names out there. Elsa proposes calling the second vermiform Fred and the first Ginger. She then grabs the camera and films Clive, whose job is to transfer Fred from the incubator to the tank where he will be mated with Ginger. Afterward, everyone in the room, including Elsa and Clive, patiently watches Fred and Ginger mate. Clive is perplexed to see Fred and Ginger walking toward one another, so he turns to Elsa to find out what is going on. According to Elsa, they are beginning to imprint because of love at first sight. The following day, Elsa and Clive go to the Newstead Pharma facility with their supervisor Barlow. They plan to have a meeting with Joan Chorab, the CEO of the NERD, to discuss their surprise proposal. Inside, Elsa discusses the lab's 3-year history, during which time they were able to effectively merge the DNA of multiple species to produce an entirely new form of life. After that, Clive provides some context by explaining that Ginger, their first vermiform critter, has performed beyond anyone's wildest dreams in terms of producing therapeutic proteins for animals. But the most interesting part is when Elsa tells Chero that she and Clive have improved their human DNA splicing technology since Fred was born. This means that scientists may potentially create a new form of human-animal hybrid by using the splicing procedure on even the most sophisticated species. However, Chero and Barlow don't seem to agree with the couple's suggestion, even though they are very pleased with the progress they have achieved so far. So Clive makes an effort to elaborate, saying that by adding human DNA to the hybrid template, they may begin to treat a wide range of disorders with a genetic component. In response, Chero reveals that the whole board eventually becomes anxious to go on to phase 2, the production phase. She advises that isolating the gene in Ginger and Fred responsible for the production of their magic protein is necessary because the couple's development has led them to believe that it is not safe. And the splicing facilities where Clive and Elsa operate will have to close. Chero will be renovating their facility and retooling their laboratory for intensive chemical analysis. This only means that Clive and Elsa will not be continuing their work on splicing animal DNA anymore. Although Elsa pleads to give them a chance, Chero is firm with her choice and points out that their project may not bear fruit for another 20 years. Once the meeting is adjourned, Elsa gets pissed for not having permission to pursue their proposed project. Since NERD is the only company that can provide the protein she needs, she decides to pursue their plans in secret with Clive. The next morning, the pair gets up super early to begin the process of creating a female prepubescent creature that can survive on its own. Elsa is in charge of tracking down a female donor for its DNA, while Clive keeps tabs on the process. Their initial attempt to create a human-animal hybrid splice turns out unsuccessful, so they decide to give it another shot, but the computer screen still shows the unsuccessful result of their experiment. Clive, in a fit of pique, lays the blame on the music and abruptly switches to a more conducive style so that they can get some work done. Thankfully, he is correct. Elsa later recognizes the issue and proposes a remedy after listening to music. After several attempts, Clive and Elsa celebrate after seeing the computer screen showing the successful development of a human-animal hybrid splice. Having captured the developing organism, Elsa makes the spur-of-the-moment decision to clone it in a human-like fashion using the biochemical incubator. Clive becomes concerned that they would go to jail as a result of this, but Elsa reassures him that she is simply interested in learning whether or not they can create a viable embryo. Despite his misgivings, Clive agrees to Elsa's proposal and turns on the incubator, beginning the process of human cloning. They spend many days monitoring the creature, with Elsa eventually offering to stay with it while Clive returns to work to avoid raising suspicion among their co-workers. Later at night, Clive and Elsa are having a rest at their apartment when suddenly, Clive receives a call that the incubator is finally preparing for amniotomy. With the incubator beginning to spiral out of control, the couple rushes to the facility to release some of the pressure. When the machine fails to remove the thing, Elsa advises sticking her hand inside it to remove it manually. However, the creature inside stings Elsa's hand unexpectedly, prompting Clive to break the glass and free Elsa. He then locks the creature within the container and administers an epinephrine injection to Elsa. Afterward, they take it to the experiment room and move it to another incubator. When the next morning comes, Clive and Elsa argue about the creature before getting up to work. Clive insists that they eliminate it, but Elsa is adamant that they should press on with their original plan. Once the two return to the facility to recheck the creature, they learn that it has grown and begun imprinting. This causes Clive to panic and attempt to gas it, but Elsa convinces him to let it live and observe it. Left with no choice, Clive joins Elsa in examining the creature until the two of them eventually determine that it is a hybrid that ages physically far more rapidly than humans do. Besides, the ambystoma gene on its body allows it to mature similarly to a human child. Although it worries Clive, Elsa states that it will also die in a compressed time, so they must take the chance to observe its entire life cycle while it lives. Finally reaching agreement, Elsa spends her days at the facility working only to observe the hybrid's growth and behavior. As a result, she forms a motherly bond with her and begins treating her like a child. She begins by showing her how to use the toys and then tries to use the Scrabble letters to teach her how to read the spelling words. Shocked, Elsa watches the hybrid spell out nerd after seeing the acronym on her shirt. Because of that, Elsa names her Dren, which she reversed from the word nerd. Later on, Gavin encounters Dren after attempting to enter the experimentation room to check on Clive and Elsa, who are squabbling. Clive tries to calm Gavin down and convince him not to tell anyone, but he runs away after witnessing it nonetheless. Because of this, Elsa decides to hide Dren away in the basement. After putting Dren down, Elsa realizes she has a fever and instructs Clive to find a remedy. Clive, in a moment of panic, comes up with a plan to try and bring Dren's temperature down by placing her in a large, chilly sink. He holds her underwater despite Elsa's plea to take her out. Clive is making Dren use her gills for proper breathing, a strategy which eventually works, revealing that Dren is amphibious. Because of their preoccupation with Dren, the couple loses sight of their progress with Fred and Ginger. The next day, the Neard Corporation displays Fred and Ginger at a public presentation so that spectators can witness the couple mate. But all of a sudden, Ginger abruptly transforms into a male, and now Fred and Ginger are killing each other. Because of this, the couple pleads to Chera to give them a chance to recreate them. But it is too late. Chera has already made up her mind to abandon splicing and continue looking for a CD356 producing gene through other means. After the failed publicized presentation, Clive and Gavin argue about Dren. Gavin suggests getting Dren out of the facility because it will not be safe for her, especially for Barlow, who is taking over every inch of the place. He is worried that Barlow will find Clive and Elsa's secret, but Clive has no idea where to take Dren, so he disagrees with Gavin's idea. Elsa intervenes and tells them that she knows a place where they can hide Dren. They send Dren to a farm, and Clive quickly puts her in a box to transport her out of the facility. After loading Dren into the car, Elsa and Clive get behind the wheel and start directing the vehicle toward the property. Later at night, the couple arrives to assist Dren overcome her fear of the dark. They take great care walking alongside her and guide her. However, Dren still panics and quickly runs away from the barn where she is supposed to stay. This prompts Clive to blame Elsa for being arrogant and for thinking she has everything under control, claiming that the calamity everyone has been warning about is the direct result of her actions. Elsa attempts to calm him down and favors focusing on looking for Dren inside the forest. She assures Clive that Dren will not leave them, so there is nothing to worry about at all. Suddenly, Dren's whimpers interrupt their conversation. The couple then remains quiet to follow Dren's voice, and Elsa leads the way to find her. In a matter of seconds, they discover that Dren is currently in the process of consuming the raw flesh of a rabbit that she has likely slaughtered. After waiting for Dren to finish her meal, Elsa confronts her first about what she did earlier, warning Dren not to run off again. A while later, Clive and Elsa move into the farmhouse with Dren to spend the rest of the night. Before they enter, Clive makes sure that Elsa is okay with spending the night in a home where she spent her childhood with her now-deceased mother. So Elsa reassures him that she has moved on and that he should not worry. The following day, Clive and Elsa get up for work, and there they find Barlow waiting to brief them on how they should be extracting proteins from the vermiform creatures, Fred and Ginger. Meanwhile, at the barn, Dren finds Elsa's box that contains toys that she often plays with during her childhood. Dren is instantly captivated, and she proceeds to test out everything in the package, from the tiara to the Barbie doll. However, Dren quickly learns that the Barbie doll is not nearly enough to keep her occupied while she is trapped in the barn. So she puts it back in the box, but then she hears a cat yell. This prompts Dren to grab it and develop feelings of attachment to the cat after touching it. Later at night, Clive and Elsa come home to the barn after a long day at the office. On their first stop, they visit Dren, where Clive adds more lights to Dren's barn, while Elsa starts making dinner. But Dren instantly puts the dish away and uses the Scrabble letters to spell out the word tedious for her. Surprised, Elsa then asks her if she wants to play a game. Dren answers by spelling out the word outside. Because of that, Elsa immediately apologizes to Dren because she can't let her go outside to play. Unfortunately, Dren gets so worked up that she has temper tantrums inside the barn, where she damages things. She also tries to get out through the roof windows, which makes Clive and Elsa panic. As Dren runs away, the couple immediately follows her to the roof and sees her standing on the edge of it. Elsa and Clive try to coax her back inside, but Dren trips as soon as she turns around and sees them. For fear of falling, Dren suddenly extends her retractable wings, stunning Clive and Elsa into discovering that Dren had reached puberty. Because of this, before Dren can use her wings to escape, Clive takes swift steps to bring her back inside by telling her that he and Elsa love her. As a result, Dren pulls back her wings and hugs Clive tightly. The following day, Elsa decides not to go to work so that she can take care of Dren at the barn. She starts spending their day by putting some makeup on Dren to make her more beautiful. However, Elsa is supposed to take the eyeliner inside the drawer when suddenly she notices pieces of Dren's drawing and sees Clive's face on it. She takes a closer look and asks Dren if she sketches her too, but Dren simply takes the papers away and walks out. Elsa follows her until she sees a cat in Dren's bed, causing her to take it away from Dren. A while later, Clive finally arrives home and catches Elsa sleeping in her room. He then pays Dren a visit at the barn, where he overhears her muttering to herself. Clive turns on some music in the hopes of lifting Dren's spirits. He teaches her to dance and jive to the music, but stops when he is starting to feel Elsa's DNA inside Dren's body. Therefore, Clive immediately excuses himself and leaves the barn. The following day, Clive confronts Elsa about putting her DNA in the experiment to create Dren. Unfortunately, Clive's frustration rises as Elsa admits it, leading him to question whether or not her intention to develop a human-animal hybrid is motivated by science or by her wish to have a child. Later, Elsa returns Dren's cat to her in the barn, thinking it could be a kind gesture. But Dren loses her mind once more and uses the stinger on her tail to murder the cat. She then launches an attack on Elsa, nearly killing her before deciding against it and instead snatching the key from around Elsa's neck. After that, Dren opens the door swiftly and prepares to flee, but Elsa attacks her from behind. Elsa physically restrains her and records the results of her experiment once more. She keeps track of Dren's odd behavior, which could be the result of misidentifying her as a different species. Even though it goes against Elsa's will, she chooses to amputate the stinger on Dren's tail to prevent her from hurting them. When Elsa is done, Clive suddenly enters the barn and catches their situation. Elsa says that she had to amputate it because Dren is becoming unstable, whereas she reveals what happened earlier. Deciding to use Dren's tail to synthesize a protein for their research, Elsa goes to put in overtime at the lab to finish working, leaving Clive and Dren alone for the rest of the night. At the farmhouse, Clive decides to watch Dren through the CCTV system, but he stops when he gets the hypnotic feeling that Dren is controlling him. After waiting all night for Elsa to return, Clive wakes up the next day on the couch to find that she is still not there. So he goes to the barn to see if she has arrived, but finds Dren standing there shirtless. Dren then forcibly locks her lips with him, causing Clive to push her and stops her from doing it. In a state of desperation, Dren uses her pheromones to lure Clive into copulating with her, and it works. When Elsa gets to the barn, she sees Clive and Dren having consensual sex, and her shock causes her to storm out of the place and go to their apartment. Therefore, Clive instantly follows Elsa and tries to apologize, but she silences him, so fed up with their situation. However, Clive knows he has to explain everything to Elsa now or never, so he musters up all his courage to do so. He then admits that he's beginning to have moral confusion, prompting Elsa to make it clear that he has no business discussing such matters with her. So Clive loses his temper and accuses her of not wanting a kid because she is afraid of being overwhelmed by parenthood. Because of that, Elsa apologizes for her decision in experimenting with Dren and informs Clive that there is a way to solve their problem. But before they make a plan, she tells him she was able to produce the protein with a derivative Dren possesses, a level 10 times greater than Fred and Ginger's. That being the case, Clive assures Elsa that there is still time to save everything by executing Dren and ending their experiment. Elsa agrees with him, and they both return to the farm when suddenly they find Dren dead in a water-filled tank. As a result, Clive and Elsa bury Dren in the barn's rafters alongside Elsa's Barbie doll. After finishing up, they plan on leaving the farm, but then they hear an engine vehicle outside. This prompts Clive to check on it and find out that it is Gavin and Barlow. When Clive shows confusion, Gavin explains that after Barlow discovered human DNA in Dren's protein samples, he has decided to tell him the whole truth. But it is too late as Elsa informs them that Dren is already dead. All of a sudden, Dren has undergone a rapid gender transition and is resurrected from the dead, causing him to attack them without hesitation. Dren's first victim is Barlow, who he mercilessly murders and hangs up on a tree. The second one is Gavin, whom he takes far away from Clive and Elsa before killing him. Unfortunately, Clive and Elsa almost have the chance to escape while Dren is away, but Clive chooses to find Gavin despite Elsa's conclusion that Gavin is probably dead. As a result, Dren attacks Clive by drowning him in the river and then rapes Elsa afterward. Although Clive, later on, regains consciousness and attempts to help Elsa, he is still overpowered by Dren and gets killed. Elsa has to gather all her strength to kill Dren to avenge Clive. Following the catastrophe, Elsa visits Chairrot in her office to discuss Dren. There, Chairrot reveals that Dren's body contained a wide range of exotic chemicals. Since Dren's sexual assault resulted in Elsa becoming pregnant, Chairrot has her sign a contract authorizing the corporation to conduct experiments on the unborn child. The movie ends with Elsa accepting the company's generous offer to carry the child so that the company can secretly patent the creature baby upon its eventual release.